Hi everyone, this is Sandra from the Schwowin's Nest. Welcome to my Christmas series. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you could hit that red button. For my first project, I'm using this old frame that I had in my stash. It still has the glass in it and it's already been painted white, so it's perfect for old farmhouse decor. This paper came from a pack that I got at Michael's a few years ago. I'm still using some of it. If I can find it, I'll link it down in my description box. Since this is just going back into the frame, I'm going to use a glue stick. It doesn't have to stick all the way through because the glass will hold it in place. And this is the original cardboard backing, but it also has another type of scrapbook paper on top that I'm going to make use of in a minute. Once the glue was dry, I removed the excess paper from the side, and because this pattern is a vertical pattern, I'm going to need to just cut little bits that I can fill in at the bottom. However, I'm only going to do two little bits on each side. As you can see me doing here, I'm just kind of measuring how much I'm going to need. I'm going to glue two little pieces on either side of the board, but I'm going to leave the center open, and that's going to create a trunk of the tree in the brown color. I just thought that was such a fun idea. I've got the backing inside the frame again, and now I'm going to start working on placing some beads onto the glass. I'm just using hot glue because this way I'll be able to just pop them off if I want to change this frame later on. I really like to reuse my items from year to year, so I'm just going to be using hot glue to apply some beads to the glass. This way, I can pop the beads off and use them for a different project, and then I can also reuse the frame for something else down the road too. I went into my stash of beads and found a few different styles that have just the natural wood look to them. I really like the combination of the red and the natural with the green background. So I'm just going to be taking them and alternating a row of red, a row of natural, and then another row of red all the way to the top. And of course, I'll be making them smaller as I go. So the rows will get smaller to make the shape of a Christmas tree. To make sure I get them all centered nicely from one end to the other, I'm going to be starting in the center. So I'll start in the center, work my way out to the left, and then work my way out to the right. And this way I'll just have an even amount of beads on both sides. Once I have all the rows completed and I'm almost at the top, I wanted to add a natural looking star, but I've only got these skinny ones. So I wanted to take a few of them and double them up or triple them up. I think I did four of these altogether to make them a little bit thicker and have it more substantial so it would be the same thickness as the beads. I glued the star to the top of the tree, and this is how it turned out. For this project, you're going to need some foam core board, a cutting board or a cutting mat, and a utility knife. I've taken this shape. It's sort of an arrow with some cutouts at the bottom, and I'm going to just trace it onto the next piece of foam core board. I'm starting with about a maybe a 4-inch piece. I didn't really measure it, so you'll have to just kind of eyeball it with me. I think it probably looks about 3.5 inches. So I'll use my utility knife to just cut these out, and I'm going to need a lot of them. So I'm just going to go to town cutting a whole bunch of pieces out first, and then we'll move on to the next step. I've taken two pieces of cardstock and I'm just taping them together to make a larger piece. If you have some poster board, that would work well too. I'm making a cone shape, and these are always a little tricky to make. So I'm just going to start playing around with this until I get the shape and the size that I want it to be. Once I have the shape and size that I like, I'm going to use some packing tape again just to hold it together. Then I took a lot of time to create a flat bottom for this, just kind of squishing it and making sure that it would stand up properly. But you don't really need to do this because the end project won't be sitting on this cardboard. What I've done here is taken my cone and placed it on a jar of paint just so it's a little higher up. And I do need to apologize for the blurriness of this portion of the video. My camera just would not focus, and I think it's because the cone was just so high that it was trying to focus on the top part of the cone instead of where I was working. But I'm hoping that you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm starting with some hot glue, and then I will be gluing all of my cutout pieces all the way along the bottom. I'm going to make sure that they sort of are close together, but not touching, if that makes sense. So just a little bead of hot glue, and then I'll just hold it on until the glue has a chance to set. I'm going to go all the way around, and then I'm going to start creating layers. I'm not speeding up this portion. I know I'm going really slow. This is real time for me, but I didn't want to speed up this portion of the video because I thought it might be difficult for you to have to try and focus on what I'm doing. And then if I make it faster, it might be even more difficult to see. For the second layer, I'm going to be adding the glue in between two of the first ones. So as you can see here, I'm going to be staggering it all the way around. I didn't want to line these up perfectly because then of course I'm going to have a really long gap from the bottom to the top. So this is called a brick lay pattern, and I tend to use this word brick lay quite a bit in my videos because that's sort of what it looks like. If you look at a wall of bricks, they are staggered and you won't see them lined up one on top of the other. For every two layers, I created these shapes the same size. And then when I moved up to, say, the third and fourth layer, I made them just a bit smaller. And I kept doing that until I got all the way to the top. And here, finally, it's clear for you to see what I'm doing. I hope this makes sense. But you can see what I'm doing now is I've got some smaller pieces and I'm still doing that staggered brick lay, and I'm hot gluing all the way around. This is starting to turn out so cool, and I hope you're going to love the finished product as much as I do. If you're going to recreate this project, make sure you've got some time. This took me about almost 2.5 hours to create from start to finish, but I just threw on YouTube and watched some of my favorite crafting people do their stuff while I was doing this. Once I got about halfway through, I didn't need to trace any of the pieces anymore. I simply just used my utility knife and just cut out a strip of the foam core board and then just started cutting out some triangles. This is really easy to do. So once you get started, you're probably going to be like me and really not even need a template. They don't have to be perfectly the same shape or size. So don't worry about that kind of stuff. Once I got to the top and I had no more cone left to work with, I started gluing the pieces on top of each other. This is the end result. I am at the top completely, and I'm just going to be putting about 4 pieces all the way around just to close up the top of the tree. So, how many of you thought I was done this project? Well, I'm not. So, what I'm doing here is cutting out these little pieces that are sort of like, to me, they actually look like little coffins. I guess I was thinking of Halloween. So they're kind of angled on the top and then they're pointy towards the bottom. And what I need to do is fill in all of the gaps where you can still see the cone. I didn't want to see the cone at all. So I'm just making sure that these pieces are going to fit snugly up inside underneath the ones that I've already put there. That's really hard to describe, but I'm hoping that you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of pushing them into the gaps, and then it'll just fill everything up and give the tree that much more texture and make all of the pieces not look so uniform. Here's a close-up look of the tree. I hope you can see all of the different pieces and those small little pointy sections that I just put in. But if you look at it, you cannot see the cone at all. And that's what I was going for. I also had tons of glue strings, so I'm just using my blow dryer on low heat to melt them away. Next, I'm going to be spray painting this out in my garage. I'm using this Duplicolor Perfect Match, which is a car enamel paint. You can find that at your local hardware store if they sell paint for cars. And the second one is a hammered metal finish. And I'm going to start with the dark gray on the bottom. And I did give this a couple of coats. And then I went over it when it was dry with the Trem Clad hammered metal finish, and it makes it look just like a galvanized piece of art. I rummaged through my stash of spindles and I found this one that was already painted and distressed, sort of an off-white color. I'm using a little piece of the foam core board and I'm going to glue the spindle right on top of it. And this is going to create a base where I'll be able to put the tree on top and it won't slide all the way down the spindle. Since the cone tree is super light, I'm just going to be using some hot glue to put these two together. To finish off the top of the tree, I glued this little wooden apple that I got from the Dollar Tree a couple of years ago. I thought they were awesome if you wanted to use kind of like a bead look, but it didn't have holes in it. So I just glued that to the top and I'm going to give it a really rough coat of white chalk paint, and this project is done. This project is also using a frame that I had in my stash. It's actually plastic, and so it's not good quality, but I'm just going to turn it into something a little fun for the holiday season. It has an easel back, so I thought that would be perfect, and then you could switch out your pictures for whatever you need. I spray painted this white and then I printed off three graphics. The two Christmas trees came from Creative Fabrica, and I'll have the link to that graphic down in my description box. And then I created the We Wish You a Merry Christmas on Canva, and that will be available as a free printable on my website. I'm just taking some sandpaper now and just kind of distressing the edges to bring back some of the black. As you can see, one of the slots is still empty. So I cut out a piece of basswood that would fit the frame. And then I used my laser machine from Xtool, which is the Xtool M1, to cut out these little trees. Now, this wood backing and those five little mini trees will be available on my Etsy shop as a craft kit. And I know sometimes people have a hard time finding the description box, so I'll have all the links available for you on the first comment for this video. To keep with the theme of my frame, which is sort of neutral and sort of these beige and vintage tones, I'm just going to leave my trees and the backing this neutral wood color. I think that just makes everything come together really nicely. And of course, you can see me just using some hot glue to put these all together. And then I'm going to hot glue it into the frame. This was a quick and simple project, but I think it turned out absolutely gorgeous. If you've been waiting to purchase some of my craft kits on Etsy, you're going to want to go there on November 1st. I'm going to be offering a 2-week sale. Save 30 is the promo code, and you're going to save 30% off when you buy two or more items. These are just a few of the Christmas designs that I have available, so make sure you head on over there to see what else I have to offer. This final project is also something that I created using my X Tool laser machine. This will be available on my Etsy shop as a craft kit. So you get two of the outlines and then you get all of these sort of jigsaw pieces. This was inspired by something I saw on Pinterest that had really large stand up trees with sort of these jagged pieces. And I thought this would be really fun to make into a little craft kit. So, what I'm going to be doing first is just cleaning off any of the burnt edges. Now, normally you wouldn't get any of this, but sometimes it happens. What I do is just take a cloth and I take a little bit of alcohol and I'll just rub off any of the burned edges. Now, if you're painting this, really doesn't matter. It's going to get totally covered up. But if you wanted to stain it, then you might see some little differences in the color. I'm starting off with the small tree and I'm using a little stain in maple. You can use whatever color you want. You can simply just spritz a little bit of water on the wood and then add whatever acrylic paint you have, and that will just create a nice little stain for it. So you don't have to go out and buy stain specifically. You can really just make your own using water and acrylic paint. I decided to do this wood color in the background because I'm going to be using different colors of green for the pieces. I'm starting off with the top piece and I'm painting that a really light sage green. I'm going to go to a slightly darker color for the next level and then I'll do darker and darker. So sort of like an ombre kind of look with each of these little puzzle pieces. I decided to do something a little whimsical for this tree just because it seemed like a little fun project. So I'm using the end of my paintbrush and I'm going to be going into a darker paint for this very top color, which is the lightest. And then I'll be using all of the different colors to make it sort of a contrast for each of the other puzzle pieces. For a final touch, I decided to take this scoring tool from the Dollar Tree and just pull out some of the paint so it would look sort of like a little swoosh or a teardrop. It was just another fun thing that I thought would make these look a little whimsical. You can definitely do anything your heart desires with these. They're an unfinished wood, so they're ready for paint, for stain, for decoupage. I wanted my Christmas trees to be able to stand up, so I'm taking one of these round wooden discs that you can get in a pack from the Dollar Tree and also some of their little birch log pieces. I'm going to hot glue those together so that will make a nice little base for my tree. Then I took my miter shears and cut out some angles on the top of the tree. That's just going to give a little bit more space for the hot glue to have more contact with the tree. I'm going to use hot glue to put all of the pieces onto my tree, and then I'll use hot glue again to glue the tree onto the base. Here's how my trees turned out. I think they're adorable. I hope you enjoyed my Christmas crafts today and got inspired to do a little crafting yourself. Please take a moment and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and don't forget about the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on anything else I have to share. Bye for now.